Look, I'm not going to act like I didn't see this coming. When you spend 28 years watching your parents treat your older brother like he's a miracle while treating you like a forgotten participation trophy, you develop a radar for disappointment. Still, I wasn't ready for the phone call on my 20th birthday. "Daniel, honey, we need to talk," Mom said in that voice. She reserves for bad news she expects me to accept with grace. You know the tone. Part kindergarten teacher, part hostage negotiator. I was in my small Portland studio apartment, eating leftover pad thai for breakfast, because that's what success looks like when you're a freelance graphic designer still building a brand. The place was 400 square feet of crushed dreams and IKEA furniture, but at least the radiator worked. Most of the time, "What steps up, Mom?" "Well, your father and I have decided to help Tyler with a down payment on a house." I waited. There had to be more. There wasn't set. "Okay, that SEP's great for Tyler." We set her giving him $100,000. I almost dropped my phone into the pad thai, which would have been tragic because that was my next 3 meals. $100,000? Yes. We want to help our children succeed. Children singular, apparently. So just to clarify, you start giving Tyler $100,000 for a house, and for me you start giving silence, the kind that writes dissertations and publishes them in peer-reviewed journals. Daniel, you stare in a very different place than Tyler. You stare made different choices. He has a stable career, a serious relationship, a plan. You stare still finding yourself. Finding myself? At 28, I'd found myself just fine. Sitting in my underwear, eating cold noodles, watching my net worth circle the drain. We knew you sept understand. You sep always been so independent. Independent? That's a funny way to spell neglected. But who was I to correct my own mother? Here sits the thing about being the family disappointment. It sits a slow build of small moments, tiny cuts that add up to one big scar shaped like not good enough. Tyler is 3 years older. From the moment he could walk, he was golden, literally blonde hair that caught the light. Mom called him her little sunshine. My brown hair, practical. Even my hair was a letdown. Tyler played football. I played jazz band. Tyler dated the homecoming queen. I dated my Xbox. Tyler cruised through state school with a business degree. I went to art school on student loans that will outlive me. And here's the part that stings. I tried at 15. At 15, I entered a national graphic design competition, spent 3 months on it, slept hardly at all, came in second place, out of 3,000 entries. Dad's response? Well, at least you tried. Tyler came in fourth at a regional swim meet, and Dad bought him a new laptop. I'm not bitter, okay. I'm like a craft IPA of bitterness, complex with notes of resentment and a slightly hoppy finish. Mom wasn't always like this. When I was little, before Tyler became the golden boy, she'd sit with me while I drew, drinking hot chocolate, and promising I'd be a famous artist someday. I was 7 when I drew an elaborate dragon, objectively terrible, but I was proud. Mom taped it to the fridge and made Dad look at it. Our Daniel is going to be an artist, she said, and she sounded proud. That was before Tyler started winning things. After that, my art moved from the fridge to the basement art wall, family code for things we're obligated to care about but don't want to see. College was supposed to be my redemption arc. Instead, I graduated into the 2016 economy and discovered exposure is apparently a form of payment now. My first job paid $28,000, required 5 years experience, a master's degree, and skills in software that wouldn't exist for another decade. I lasted 8 months before getting restructured, corporate speak for fired. Then I went freelance. That's what you call unemployment when you want to sound entrepreneurial at parties. But I kept going, took every client, designed logos for crypto scams, flyers for garage bands, Instagram graphics for influencers who paid in exposure. Slowly, painfully, I built something. Got better clients. Started charging actual money. By 28, I was surviving, not comfortably, not impressively, but enough. Then Tyler announced he was buying a house. It was at Sunday dinner, a tradition my parents insisted on even though we lived 40 minutes apart. We played functional family for 2 hours a week. Jess and I have been looking at houses, Tyler said, passing the mashed potatoes. Tyler always passed things. Helpful, considerate, golden. Great neighborhood in Bellevue. But down payments are insane. Dad perked up like a golden retriever hearing walk. How much? Houses are around $500,000. We still need $100,000 down to avoid PMI. They exchanged that married people glance where whole conversations happen in a second. What if we helped? Dad said. Tyler Sepp's face lit up. Dad, I couldn't set. You stead not asking. We stead offering. Dad got that satisfied look. It's time we helped our son build his future. Our son, singular. Mom looked at me, probably feeling guilty. Daniel, when you sit ready to settle down? I sip in fine. This is great for Tyler. Tyler looked uncomfortable. Thanks, Danny. I sipped, I'm sure someday. Totally. When I'm not such a catastrophic failure. I smiled to show I was joking. We all knew I wasn't. That was 3 months before my birthday call. 3 months of Sunday dinners discussing Tyler's house hunt, like the moon landing. 3 months of we've allocated our resources elsewhere whenever I needed work equipment. So when Mom called on my birthday, to officially tell me I wasn't getting anything, I wasn't surprised. What surprised me was what came next. We are having a celebration dinner this Sunday. Tyler Sips closing on the house. You still come? One situ. A celebration for Tyler getting their money. On my birthday. Actually, I have plans. Oh, what are you doing? Eating ice cream from the container and questioning my life choices. Probably. Out loud, I said. Meeting friends. You know how it is. Well, we miss you. Maybe birthday dinner next week? Sure, Mom. Next week. We both knew next week would never come. I hung up and stared at my life. 28. 400 square feet. Negative net worth. A family that remembered I existed maybe 12 times a year, mostly when they needed someone to feel superior to. That's when something shifted. Not dramatically. No montage, no music, just a quiet realization. I was done trying to win approval. Done showing up to be reminded of my inadequacy. Done being the punchline to Tyler's success story. I wasn't going to cut them off with a big scene or a manifesto. I was just going to stop. Stop calling. Stop visiting. Stop putting energy into a one-sided relationship. Let them have their golden boy and perfect narrative. I'd build something else. I didn't know what yet, but it would be mine. The first week of silence was weird. I kept catching myself about to text Mom something small, like a meme or a random thought about the weather. Muscle memory from 28 years of trying to keep a connection that was never really there. By week 2, I noticed they hadn't reached out either. Not a single "Hey, how are you?" or "We miss you at dinner." Just silence, which honestly told me everything I needed to know about how much they'd actually been thinking about me all along. Tyler texted once, "You good?" Mom said, "You've been busy." I replied, "Yeah, swamped with work. Congrats on the house." He sent back a thumbs up. That was the extent of our brotherly bonding. Here's the thing, nobody tells you about going no contact with family. The hardest part isn't missing them. It's realizing how little you actually miss them once they're gone. I thought I'd feel this huge void. Instead, I felt lighter, freer, like I'd been carrying a backpack full of rocks, and finally realized I could just put it down. But freedom doesn't pay rent, And my 400-square-foot apartment was still expensive. I threw myself into work with the kind of manic energy that either leads to a breakthrough or a breakdown. Thankfully, it was the former. I'd been designing a logo for a small coffee roasting company. Nothing fancy, just a local business trying to look legitimate. The owner, Marcus, was a middle-aged guy who'd quit his corporate job to follow his dream of making pretentious coffee for hipsters. We had been going back and forth on revisions for weeks. I wanted to feel authentic but modern. He said, rustic but clean, bold but subtle. Translation: I have no idea what I want, but I set'll know it sets wrong when I see it. Then something clicked on revision number 17. I created a design that was brutally minimal, clean lines and negative space that somehow captured exactly what his brand was trying to be. Marcus called me at 11 p.m. When I sent it, "Daniel, this is it. Exactly it. How much do I owe you?" I'd quoted him $800 originally, already undercharging for the work I'd put in. But something made me pause. Maybe it was the high of finally creating something right. Maybe it was leftover anger at my parents. Maybe I was just tired of undervaluing myself. $1,200, I said, fully expecting him to balk. Done. I sipped him, also opening a second location next year. Would you be interested in doing all the branding, signage, menu design, packaging, the whole thing? I tried to play it cool. Yeah, I could probably fit that in. Great. I stepped thinking around $15,000 for the complete package. Does that work for you? I nearly choked on my own spit. $15,000 was more than I'd made in the last 4 months combined. That works. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment staring at the wall. $15,000 for work I actually enjoyed, from a client who valued what I created. It felt like both validation and a quiet form of revenge. That project led to another, and then 3 more. Turns out, when you stop wasting energy trying to win your parents' approval, you have a lot more left to put into your own success. Within 6 months, I had doubled my income. I wasn't wealthy by any means, but I was finally comfortable, able to buy groceries without checking my bank account balance first. I moved out of the 400-square-foot box of frustration into a 1-bedroom apartment with actual separate rooms. Revolutionary concept. I even bought a couch that didn't come from Craigslist. By month 9, something unexpected happened. I started feeling content. Not that my life was perfect, but it was mine, and that was enough. I joined a gym, which sounds like a cliché post-breakup move, except this was a post-family breakup, which somehow felt even sadder. But it was good to finally do something just for myself. Besides, spite makes for an excellent pre-workout. Around month 10, I met Sarah at a coffee shop. She was at the next table, working on her laptop, and we started talking about the terrible Wi-Fi. We bonded over the shared frustration of freelance life. She was a copywriter, had the same hustle energy I did. At first, it wasn't romantic, just 2 freelancers surviving the same grind. We began working together in coffee shops, libraries, and eventually each other's apartments. Then one night at her place, she looked at me and said, "I really like you. You know that?" I froze completely. My relationship skills could best be described as underdeveloped. But Sarah laughed at my panic and added, "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know." 2 weeks later, we were dating. She was smart, funny, ambitious, and most importantly, she understood why I avoided talking about my family. When I finally told her about the $100,000 house gift and the birthday phone call, she just shook her head. "That's messed up," she said simply. No excuses, no maybe they had their reasons, just validation. And that was everything. A year after I stopped speaking to my family, Sarah and I were at brunch, hungover but happy, when my phone rang. "Mom," I stared at the screen like it was a live grenade. "You going to answer that?" Sarah asked. I don't know. Do I want to? Part of me was curious, hoping for an apology, some acknowledgement that they'd been wrong, but the larger part of me knew that wasn't going to happen. I let it go to voicemail. 5 minutes later, I listened. Daniel, honey, it's Sip's mom. We haven't heard from you in so long. Your father and I are worried. Tyler, Sip's worried too. Please call us back. We miss you. We miss you. After a year of silence, after giving Tyler $100,000 and me nothing but disappointment, that was the message. I deleted it. What did she say? Sarah asked. That they miss me. Do you believe her? I thought about it. Did I believe my mother missed me? Maybe, in the way you might miss an old chair after redecorating. Not enough to actually do anything about it, just a vague sense of something that used to be there. No, I said finally. I don't think I do. Sarah squeezed my hand. Then you don't have to call back. And I didn't. 2 weeks later, Tyler called. I answered, mostly out of curiosity. Danny, what's going on? Mom and Dad are freaking out. They said you haven't called them back. I been busy. For a year? Yeah, Tyler, for a year. Silence. Then is this about the house thing? Because I told them they should helped you too. I said it wasn't fair. That surprised me. You did? Of course. You steer my brother. But you know how they are. They said you understand. You steer independent, and didn't need the help. So you just let them? What was I supposed to do? Turn down $100,000 out of principle? Also a fair point, which only made me angrier. No, I guess not. Look, just call Mom, okay? She's driving me crazy. She thinks you're mad at them. I am mad at them. Well, I don't know. Work it out or something. I've got to go. Jess is calling. But seriously, just call her. He hung up before I could reply. I sat there feeling that same toxic mix of anger, guilt, and inadequacy. Rationally, I knew I had every right to be upset. But the part of me that had spent 28 years being conditioned to accommodate everyone else whispered, maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I should just call back. Maybe I was the problem. Sarah found me staring at my phone. Tyler? She guessed. Yeah, he says Mom's freaking out, and I should call her. Do you want to? I don't know. I just know I'm tired of feeling like the bad guy for having boundaries. Then don't call. You don't owe them access to your life, just because they suddenly decided they want it. She was right. Of course, she was right. But knowing something logically and accepting it emotionally are two very different things. I didn't call. Instead, I kept working, kept building, kept growing. More clients came. I raised my rates again. For the first time, I started turning down projects that didn't interest me. Having the option to be selective was new and powerful. By month 18, I had saved enough to consider something I never thought possible. Buying property. Not a house yet, but maybe a small piece of land. Something that was mine, earned on my own. Something my parents had nothing to do with. I started browsing late-night listings, imagining what I could build, not just physically, but symbolically, a life separate from the family who never valued me. I didn't know it then, but that dream was about to become bigger than I could imagine, and ironically, my brother would end up driving past it one day, pulling over and calling our father in outrage, but that comes later. Finding the property was pure accident. Sarah and I had gone hiking at the Columbia River Gorge one weekend. One of those spur-of-the-moment trips where you wake up and decide you need to see trees taller than your apartment building. We'd been dating about 6 months, and things were serious in that easy way where you stop pretending not to snore. On the drive back, we got completely lost. GPS dropped out, and Sarah was navigating with a paper map like we were settlers. We ended up on a forgotten back road about 40 minutes outside Portland. the kind of road that hadn't seen fresh pavement since the Reagan years. "I think we still lost," Sarah said. "We're not lost, we're adventuring," I replied, though we had already passed the same creepy abandoned barn twice. Then we rounded a corner, and there it was. 5 acres of overgrown land with a hand-painted for sale sign, barely visible through blackberry bushes. The property backed up to a creek, dotted with massive old-growth firs, and offered a view that made you understand why people write poetry about nature. It was completely impractical. The driveway was barely a driveway. There was no house, no utilities, just raw land that would require thousands to make livable. I pulled over anyway. "What are you doing?" Sarah asked. "I want to look." "Daniel, we are in the middle of nowhere. This is how horror movies start." But I was already walking up what might have once been a driveway. The property was even better up close. Quiet in the way forests are, full of small sounds, birds, wind, water in the distance. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Possibility. The number on the sign was hard to read, but I took a photo. "You're serious about this?" Sarah asked when I got back in the car. "Maybe. I don't set no. Probably can set afford it anyway. You should call." And I did. The next day, hungover and still smelling of campfire, I called the number. The owner, Frank, was in his 70s, voice like sandpaper. "You interested in the property?" he asked. "Maybe. How much are you asking?" $45,000. I nearly dropped the phone again. Apparently, that was my thing. $45,000 for 5 acres? Yup, it sits unbuildable as it is. Needs septic, a well and power. But the land is solid. Been in my family since the 50s. I am just too old to do anything with it now. $45,000. Less than half of what my parents gave Tyler. I had $32,000 saved. Every dollar scraped together over 18 months of choosing myself. "Would you take $30,000? I asked, bracing for a laugh. "Son, I sept asking $45 because that sep's what I need. Taxes, medical bills, can sept go lower." Fair enough. I couldn't blame a 70-year-old man for needing to pay his bills. I thanked him and hung up. 13,000 short. Might as well have been $1 million. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. That land haunted me. I dreamed about it. Not even a house, just a studio, a workshop, a space undeniably mine. Sarah caught me looking at the photos for the 100th time. "You really want this?" "Doesn't stet matter. I can stet afford it." "What if I helped?" I looked at her. "What?" "I have some savings. Not much. Maybe $8,000. We could buy it together." "Sarah, that seps your money? You can sept, just can set I. We sep already been talking about moving in together anyway. This could be our project. Something we built together. Literally." I wanted to agree instantly, but hesitation crept in. What if things didn't work out between us? Sarah was quiet for a moment, then said, "We'd handle it like adults. Draw up paperwork. Make it official. Protect both of our investments. But Daniel, you can't let fear of failure stop you from going after what you want. You've done that too long with your family." She was right. She usually was. "Okay," I said. "Let's do it." We called Frank that same afternoon, offered $40,000, the most we could manage. He asked for 3 days to think it over. 3 days of little sleep, refreshing my email like that would somehow speed his decision. Finally, his reply came, "All right, son, $40,000. But you cover closing costs. Deal." The process dragged out for 2 months. Endless paperwork, inspections, and signatures, until my hand cramped. Sarah and I formalized everything with a lawyer. 60% mine, 40% hers. If we broke up, one could buy the other out, or we'd sell and split the proceeds. Not romantic, but necessary. Closing day itself was simple. Just us, Frank, and a stack of forms at a title office. After signing, he handed me the original painted for sale sign. With a grin, "You earned it. Good luck with the place." And just like that, I owned land, 5 acres of possibility. Standing there with the deed in my hand, I felt something I hadn't felt since I was a kid sketching dragons: pride. The first months were pure cleanup. On weekends, Sarah and I hauled trash, cut blackberry bushes, and cleared space. Exhausting, messy work, but deeply satisfying. I started sketching a small cabin design, maybe 800 square feet, simple enough to build with YouTube tutorials and stubbornness. But then I had a better idea. One of my clients, James, was an architect specializing in sustainable homes. Over coffee, I mentioned the property, and he immediately lit up. "Let's make it a showcase project. I'll design it. You handle branding and marketing for my firm in exchange. We'll document the process, build our portfolios together." I told him I couldn't afford anything extravagant. He replied, "Who said extravagant? We sell keep it small, efficient, and sustainable. Prove you don't need a $100,000 gift from your parents to create something beautiful." He knew my story. Most of my close friends did by then. Over 6 months, we designed a 600 square foot cabin with a loft, composting toilet, rainwater collection, and solar panels. Not because I was chasing some environmental dream, but because it was cheaper than running utilities. Total budget, $65,000. I had $15,000 saved. Sarah contributed $10,000, and the rest came from a construction loan that made me nervous but was manageable. We broke ground in spring. I hired a contractor for foundation and framing, then tackled the interior myself on nights and weekends. Sarah pitched in with painting and finishing touches. Marcus, my friend from the coffee company, showed up with his crew some Saturdays, working for beer and pizza. It was the hardest physical labor of my life. I lost weight, built calluses, and discovered construction is mostly problem-solving, and a lot of swearing. But piece by piece, the cabin came together. By fall, 18 months after I'd cut contact with my family, I had a cabin. Small, simple, off-grid, and completely mine. Well, 60% mine. James photographed it for his portfolio, and the shots looked like they belonged in a magazine despite costing a fraction of Tyler's house. I posted one picture on Instagram, just the cabin with the caption, "Built this, proud of it." Within an hour, it had more likes than anything I'd ever shared. Within a day, a local design blog wanted to feature it. Within a week, 3 clients reached out asking about similar projects. And somewhere in that timeline, Tyler saw it. Driving home from a hiking trip, he took the same wrong turn Sarah and I once had. He recognized my car, pulled over, walked up, and saw the cabin. He called Dad immediately, shouting into the phone so loud I heard him from inside. I stepped outside and found him staring at the cabin like it was something otherworldly. "What the hell is this, Danny?" he asked. "This," I said, "is mine." He looked stunned. "You built this? How? You were broke, living in that shoebox, eating ramen." "That was 2 years ago, Tyler, but Dad gave me $100,000, and you had nothing. How did you?" I told him, "Turns out when you stop wasting energy chasing approval from people who don't care, you can actually get things done." He shifted uncomfortably. "That sip's not fair. When's the last time Mom or Dad even asked about my work, my life?" He didn't respond. I explained I'd bought the land for $40,000, built the cabin for $65,000, and did most of the work myself. No handouts. Sarah stepped outside then, and I introduced her. Tyler was clearly processing everything. He muttered that he told our parents they should helped me too. I reminded him he took it anyway. He pulled out his phone. I him calling Dad. He needs to see this. Half an hour later, they arrived. Mom looked shocked. Dad examined the place carefully. His first words weren't sip trays but suspicion. You built this with what money? Saved it. Earned it. Worked for it, I said. Mom frowned. But we thought you were struggling. I wasn't struggling. I was building just without you. Then something unexpected. Dad Sip's tone softened. He sips right, Susan. Look at this. We gave Tyler $100,000, and he bought a standard house. Daniel built this for less than half. And it sips remarkable. I was wrong about you, about what success looks like. It wasn't triumph I felt, but something smaller and sadder. Mom tried to say they were worried, but I asked if they were truly worried or just unsettled by my silence. She had no response. I told them plainly, I don't need your approval or your money anymore. I step good for the first time. Tyler asked, so what now? You just cut us off? Maybe. Or maybe we figure out a relationship where I sip not the disappointment and you sip not the golden child, where they treat us as equals. Dad nodded, agreeing. Mom stayed quiet. They asked to see the inside, and I let them, watching them realize it wasn't just a cabin, it was proof that I was capable and successful on my own terms. Outside with the sun setting, I told them, if I let you back into my life, it's going to be different. Boundaries, respect, no more comparisons. Dad said that was fair. Mom bit her tongue. Tyler lingered after they left, apologizing sincerely this time. I believed him. Later, Sarah wrapped her arm around me and asked how I felt. Tired, relieved. Sad, proud, all of it. She nodded. That sep's fair. You did well today. We sat on the porch, watching the light fade. My land, my cabin, my life, built from nothing, despite everything. Maybe someday, I'd let my family back in. Maybe we'd rebuild. But for that night, I was content to appreciate what I had created, not just the cabin, but the whole journey.